Hey guys, I just accidentally donated 40 cents to fucking Children's Hospital.
The story of Daniel Larson is one that's incredibly complex, controversial, and filled with detail. If I were to give you a full rundown on this character, then we would likely be here all day, as there's so many intricate details and stories to go over that would only give you a slight idea as to the person that Daniel Larson truly is. Ultimately, Daniel Larson is someone who has a whole docuseries worth of material on his life and interactions with the internet, and then some. With this all being said, it's safe to say that Daniel Larson is not your average lolcow, and to say that he has a history would be quite the understatement. Put in the simplest form possible, Daniel Larson is a controversial figure who made his rounds on TikTok around mid to late 2020. Daniel has a slew of mental health issues, ranging from verified autism and bipolar disorder to some even suspecting that Daniel may have some more serious conditions such as schizophrenia. Whatever the case may be, one can easily conclude Daniel isn't exactly the pinnacle of adequate mental health to say the very, very least.
The motel! The motel just threatened to kill me!
Get out of my car!
Stop! The motel threatened to kill me!
Then I'm gonna call the police!
The motel threatened to kill me!
Daniel's issues paired with his active presence on TikTok during the COVID-19 pandemic period made him an alluring figure to many on the platform, for better or for worse. You see, the main reason Daniel grew such a large fanbase so quickly was because he recorded nearly every aspect of his life for the internet to see. And this life was one that was, well, interesting. From Daniel recording himself having tantrums in public and hitting and breaking things, to even more obscure aspects about his character, such as his imagined relationship with at the time underage Grace Vanderwall, and various dramas with those around him in his personal life, Daniel's life was anything but typical, and his chaotic nature was fascinating for others online. As well, Daniel oftentimes found himself to be easily manipulated by those around him and online, and holds many grandiose delusions because of this. From believing that he's a famous celebrity singer/songwriter, to believing that he was running to be the President of the United States, these are only a few of the delusions that Daniel has brought up over the years. To go into more detail about his dramatic past and diving deeper into his varying controversies would take up too much time, and these details are ones that will reoccur later within the docuseries. However, to say the least, most people within the Larsonian community agree that Daniel is anything but a respectable figure. Now, I'll try to whiz through his early life here as quickly as possible, as it's more so meant to be a brief prerequisite that'll be used as a base point to further discuss his recent history and how it relates to his so-called career on TikTok. As well, shout out to the Daniel Larson wiki for providing much of the information that is to be discussed below. With all of this being said, Daniel Robert Larson was born November 15th, 1998 in Lancaster, California, to Elizabeth Schimmer and James Travis Larson. Details about his early childhood are scarce, however many have suspected that Daniel's early home environment was turbulent and filled with abuse, with Daniel particularly mentioning his mother of being a large source of this abuse on many occasions. According to Daniel himself, he has accused his mother of being both neglectful and abusive on multiple occasions, which is somewhat sustained due to the fact that Daniel was relocated. However, his mother as well has accused Daniel of being abusive towards her on a number of varying occasions. For example, his mother Elizabeth would go to leave multiple comments on videos by YouTuber/TikToker Papa Gut, in which he would go into further detail on a number of topics relating to Daniel, including Daniel's various disabilities, which would go beyond his initial autism diagnosis, including schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, his history of physical violence against both her and Nancy, the interpersonal relationship between the three of them, and that Daniel's stint in jail was in relation to his treatment of them. It is also widely rumored within the community that both Daniel's mother and father hold restraining orders against him. Although it is uncertain if Elizabeth can be trusted as a reliable narrator due to her tumultuous history with Daniel, the YouTube account which posted the comments has been verified as belonging to her. Beyond these encounters, however, Daniel's mother more or less remains an unknown character in the Daniel Larson story, and it is impossible to know whether or not anything she or Daniel says about her is true. It is also important to note around here that Daniel has been outed as a compulsive liar on many occasions, with many of his lies even bordering into outright delusion. However, this is a topic we will touch base on again later within the story. At around age 11, Daniel was no longer able to live with his parents due to reasons unspecified, with many speculating that this abuse was the primary catalyst behind this decision. Because of this, his grandmother became his legal guardian. Daniel's grandmother was said to enable Daniel fairly often. For example, Daniel's father recalls a time in which his young son once painted on his grandmother's walls without permission. Instead of punishing her young grandson, however, she rewarded him with M&M. It was behavior such as this in which led Daniel's father to believe that his son's grandmother was the cause of many of his behavioral issues later in life. Also, it's important to note that Daniel's relationship with his grandmother is one that would soon become one of his most important, as we will soon discuss. Daniel was said to be a difficult kid to raise, with many of those around him having many troubles regarding clashes with his turbulent character. By the time he turned 14, Daniel was enrolled at the Tennyson Center for Children, a healthcare facility in Denver, Colorado that specializes in serving neglected, abused, and traumatized children. Daniel lived at the facility for about 1.5 years and attended their programs for 3, after suffering neglect by his mother. He would stop living at Tennyson Center after his grandmother got a word of his living situation, and subsequently moved to Denver from California in order to become his legal guardian. During this period, Daniel received multiple diagnoses, including ADHD, autism, mental retardation, and bipolar disorder. There is lots of speculation around the presence of additional conditions as well. According to an interview recorded with his father in November 2022, his father would go on to claim that Daniel has a laundry list of mental health issues. It is also believed that Daniel's neglectful parents and volatile environment may have played a role in worsening his overall condition and already turbulent behavior. A news report from 2012 highlights Daniel's time at the Tennyson Center, revealing that he grew up in an extremely neglectful and allegedly abusive home, with his mother being a source of concern. It also further taps into the mind of the at-the-time 14-year-old Daniel Larson, where he can be seen playing with his grandmother and discussing his future plans and dreams of becoming both a storm chaser and performing actor.
And he now has big dreams and is looking forward to the future.
I like theater. I love to act. I want to storm chase when I get older. Hopefully I'll be on the news one day.
Little is known about Daniel's high school years, though it's known that he is an alumni of Serbetsky Academy in Lakewood, Colorado. Only one video of him has surfaced from this era of his life, showcasing him along with a bunch of other classmates auditioning for a school play. Now please note, this is the only video that I could personally find of him out there from around this era, so if anyone else has any other videos from this period of his life, then my bad, I guess. Ultimately, in 2017, Daniel was said to have graduated from the school, having many plans of attending post-secondary education for a scattered list of majors. Like with many things, however, this idea has never and will likely never come into fruition. The next few years following Daniel's high school years were said to be troublesome. Not much is known about the period spanning from 2017 to 2019. However, in July of 2019, Daniel's grandmother passed away from cancer, leading to Daniel being placed in a state-run group home program for the disabled. He resided there for about 2 years before moving between different living arrangements and experiencing homelessness in between. With his close family harboring lots of tension with Daniel, and with many of them residing in other states, Daniel faced greater hardships and lacked access to adequate mental health care, which had a detrimental impact on his mental health. It was also around this time that Daniel literally had his first encounter with an online troll, which was surprisingly well before his time on TikTok. In the summer of 2019, Daniel was said to have held a brief government-funded position working as a clerk at a local thrift store. It was here that Daniel made some of the first money that he could call his own. According to an unknown source, Daniel was said to fall for many catfishing-related scams during his stints on other social media sites such as Facebook, for example. Daniel would often receive provocative messages from seemingly alluring figures, posing as women who were interested in Daniel. Daniel was said to go back and forth talking with many of these accounts, in which around the month of August of 2019, one of these catfish accounts requested $500 from the young Daniel Larson, in which he ultimately paid to the questionable figure. Ultimately, all of Daniel's summer savings were stolen from him, with him having nothing to show for his hard work. I have yet to find a reliable source for the story, however, so the story is ultimately out for pure speculation only. This period brings us to the beginning of 2020, which ultimately marks the beginning of Daniel's so-called TikTok career. Soon enough, Daniel's celebrity status would be taken to all-time highs, too much for the average mind to handle. Due to Daniel's bizarre character and the fact that his TikTok account was virtually a public diary of his day-to-day life, this led to some exponential growth in the platform around early to mid-2020. Ever since his rise to fame on TikTok, Daniel was also a consistent target for trolls on the app, with his general behavior, looks, along with his delusions and dreams of being a famous singer and actor, leading to him being heavily manipulated by those online and around him. These instances of trolling started out to be relatively harmless in nature, revolving around instances of spamming his comment section, calling him, baiting him for reactions, and claiming to be American singer, songwriter, and actress Grace VanderWaal, whom Daniel had an obsession with since as early as 2021. Put briefly, Daniel's obsession with Grace began during his hyperfixation with fame and desire to date a celebrity. Daniel was physically attracted to Grace and decided, without her knowledge or consent, that they were dating.
This message is to Grace VanderWaal and to the fans. We are officially dating. Grace VanderWaal has told me to make this public. We are officially dating.
This quote-unquote relationship would progress quickly due to Daniel's delusions, leading to his posts on his numerous social media accounts regarding her becoming far more explicit in nature. But of course, I digress. As mentioned above, these tame pranks would start to shift around the end of 2020, and as a mysterious figure going by the alias of Flexburger would enter the scene in mid-2021, the pranking would soon begin to bleed into manipulation. Flexburger contacted Daniel claiming to be a record label, and would begin the first string of managers for Daniel. These so-called managers would do very little to actually further his music career and would instead start to manipulate and influence him into doing some degrading acts, such as the May 6th incident, in which Daniel was approached by who he thought was Grace VanderWaal, requesting a video of him putting a toothbrush inside of his, well, you know.
This is for you, Grace.
In which ultimately Daniel obliged to this request and, well, filmed the video for the world to see. Around the same time, another wave of popularity would occur around Daniel Larson, with him getting over 1 million views on TikTok after 3 notable events that would both happen in 2020. He would announce his presidential campaign on his TikTok account in July, which, while going nowhere, gained him a ton of eyes for how delusional he seemed.
I am going to be running for president in 2024. Are you ready for this? Please follow me, we got some big news coming ahead.
r/Daniel Larson would be founded in October of this year, which, while being mostly on the down low in the months following, would later be flooded with popularity and become the biggest hub of Daniel Larson activity. The third, final, and definitely most controversial incident would be the Flexburger Pinterest leak. Flexburger would leak the account into the subreddit, and its content would be more than disturbing. It contained photos of young girls, maps of the age of consent in US states, and other images and content which would point to one conclusion, that Daniel could be a pedophile. There would almost immediately be a ton of debate over whether Daniel actually owned this account. However, as many alleged that Flexburger hacked the account and placed the photos into the page, which is believable as Flexburger was a known manipulator and has hacked into Daniel's accounts before. However, many would counter these arguments by saying that Flexburger had no reason to do this. It would take a monumental amount of effort to save the amount of photos he did, and that Daniel was already suspected of being a pedophile due to his obsession with Grace. No matter what you think of this leak, this is definitely the second major turn in the Daniel Larson story, as most people did not suspect he was a pedophile before this despite his Grace obsession. Daniel's appearance to the community would change from that of an innocent, mentally ill man to a dangerous pedophile, and he would start to receive more constant and potent trolling. With all this being said, one can begin to see that the story of Daniel Larson is anything but straightforward. It is important to know that this brief rundown of Daniel's history still doesn't even come close to truly articulating the type of character that Daniel truly is. In later videos, yes, multiple videos are necessary, we will go into more depth about the more intricate areas of Daniel's history, and dive deeper into his life post-2020 and 2021, which I can already tell you is absolutely shocking to say the least. With all this being said, I'd like to thank you for the view. I'm sorry if any of the details mentioned within the story seem vague, however, this was my best attempt at condensing a highly complex storyline into a 10 to 15 minute video, and I hope that I did that to at least a half-decent standard. With all that being said, take care, and I'll see you within the next video. Peace.
That was assault, by the way.